Hi, my name is Shayna Cochran, and today I will be talking with you about the redistribution of wealth and whether or not it's a good or bad thing. So, you might ask, what is the redistribution of wealth? Redistribution of wealth is when the rich are taxed at a higher percentage rate than the lower and middle class. The money collected from this increase in tax is then used for programs targeted at the lower and middle class. Let's start by going over both sides of the argument. The first side of the argument that I will discuss is anti-redistribution. This is based on the supply side argument, which states that if we cut taxes on the rich, they have an incentive to work even harder than they were before. After all, who wants to work hard just to have their money taken away from them? Anyway, since they worked hard and earned all this extra money, they now have money left over after bills called disposable income that can be used for investment after deposited in the bank or used with the stock market. This leads to growth, productivity, and capital accumulation, which then trickles down to the lower levels on the income totem pole. Not only does this allow for money to be used for investment, but decreases in tax rate also help produce the most tax revenue for the government. This can be seen by Laffer's curve, which shows that when the tax rate is lowered from one that is high to one that is in the middle range, the government will receive the most tax revenue. People who fall into the anti-redistribution side of the argument are typically considered to be conservative in political spectrum. The second side of the argument is pro-redistribution. The argument behind this policy is based on the consumption function. Based on the consumption function, the poor and middle class have a higher MPC, or marginal propensity to consume, which is the portion of each additional dollar that we spent if a given person is given another dollar. In this example, the poor have an MPC of 0.8 and the rich have an MPC of 0.2. This means that if a poor person is given a dollar, they would spend 80% of that dollar and only save 20%. This is reserved for the rich person who spends 20% of every dollar and saves 80%. This is because the rich person has so many dollars coming in. People who fall into the pro-redistribution side of the argument are typically considered to be liberal on the political spectrum. So, why is it so important? Ever heard of the buffet rule by chance? The buffet rule was a plan that President Obama was trying to have approved last month, which made it so that wealthier people had to pay a higher tax rate than lower class people. He claimed it wasn't redistribution of wealth, but what else are you going to do with the money? This is exactly why redistribution is so important, because depending on who we elect as president in the coming months, some plan along these lines could come into action, although it won't be the buffet rule, because that got booted. So, is the redistribution of wealth good or bad? Personally, I don't think there's anything wrong with rich paying a little bit more, but I don't believe that the money that we are getting should be put into Medicare or welfare right away. The money should be going to be paying off our debts or for job programs that train people who are unemployed or to even create new jobs for people who are unemployed. I also believe that it should be done at a lower tax rate than expected in order to get the most tax revenue out as possible. So in all, no, redistribution of wealth is not bad. It just needs to be revamped a little bit. After all, if you give a man a fish, he'll eat for a day. But if you teach a man to fish, he'll eat for a lifetime.